I don't really have anything planned. I finished my teaching this morning, my time anyway, and just thought I'd see what's going on in the world of HAPS. And that includes me going online for a minute or two, I guess. So, um,
Yes, here we are live again.
oh, sorry, no, you're not. That was a little outburst there. Okay, so yeah, here I am and seeing what everyone else is doing. Oh, somebody has pre-orders. Oh, yes, Chris Angeles is pre-selling her music, I guess. Yeah, good deal. Haps book Haps Book Club. Homo Homo Irrealis. Okay, don't know what that means. Story time. Okay, cool. Should check that out. Enough is enough. Okay, enough is enough. It usually is, and I'd say it, or more or less always has been. Enough is enough. That's kind of the definition of what enough is. Enough is enough. All right, enough silliness there. What's going on? Anybody dropping in to take a look? Yeah, so what I thought I'd do is I'd come on here, see what is happening, and people come drop by to chat. That would be cool. If not, I may just see what there is to see. Let's see. So what do you got to tell me about today, Internet? Let's see. I was just looking, trying to broaden my horizons, so to speak, I guess, seeing what the world has to show us. But whoops, that doesn't work. There we go. There, that's a little better. Still too wide, huh? Narrow it down. There we go. How's that? Still too wide? Really? Oh, this is a tiny little thing. There we go. So new public domain books to read in 2021. Okay. So long and the short of all this is that effective the 1st of January 2021, which has been a few months ago already, all works first published or released before January 1st, 1926 became yours to have, to read, and to adapt. And what a year it was for literature. The full list is, shall we say, a little tough to navigate, so let me make life easier. We've gathered 12 of your best bets, and they're all gems. Oh, The Great Gatsby. The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald is now public domain. And public domain, copyright things and so on vary country by country. So I'm guessing that this is in the States that they're talking about. I mean, most countries kowtow to the United States' whims, to put it one way, or generally adopt similar copyright guidelines, but not exactly. So you might want to check in your own locale. But The Great Gatsby. I cannot say Gatsby. What is it? Gatsby. Yeah. Gatsby. The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald is now in the public domain. I started to read that. I got a third of the way, maybe halfway through it, and just didn't care. I mean, there was nothing there that just pulled me in and made me want to finish reading the story. I know it's just me, but there were just none of the characters that I really cared about, that I was like, oh, what's going to happen? How's this going to work out? I just didn't find myself caring about any of the characters. So I've never actually finished reading The Great Gatsby. I have started it at least once, maybe twice. Never finished. Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. Now that is one that might be worth reading. I saw that movie, The Hours, which of course is completely different, but yeah, it kind of intrigued me more about Virginia Woolf's works. And yeah, that's one that I am thinking of reading. And now that it's in the public domain, hey, sounds good to me. Many more people have heard of Virginia Woolf than have actually read her works, largely because of her vivid stream of consciousness storytelling has a reputation for being quite challenging. But now that Mrs. Dalloway has entered the public domain, you can accept the challenge with no commitment. It's the ultimate satisfaction or your money back guarantee. Okay, so yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf is now public domain. Let's check it out. I think I might. Yeah, kind of interesting. The next number 3 on this list is In Our Time by Ernest Hemingway. Hemingway, I have read some Hemingway. The Old Man and the Sea, was the first Hemingway book I read, I believe, and that's right. It is. The Old Man and the Sea is by Hemingway, isn't it? Now that I say it, I mean, it's been so long. I mean, really, it's been so. The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. Okay, good. Total idiot. Yeah, it's been, I mean, it was like junior high school, I think, when I read that, or maybe elementary school. It might have been elementary school when I read that. And I really liked that. I thought that was a pretty good story. That was one where somehow I did become invested in the characters and the main character, and read that to the end. I found that a really good book. But other things I've heard about Hemingway, I mean, he seemed to be a little bit too enthusiastic about war for my tastes. Let's see. Hemingway's first published work and the first of his books to become public domain, with more coming soon. Hemingway fans get excited. In Our Time is a collection of short fiction about life before, during, and after World War I. Like most Hemingway novels, it is a catalog of suffering, loss, and loneliness soaked in alcohol and overrun with violence. Matadors are gored to death, cabinet ministers are lined up and shot, and black men hang in a county jail, as well as many of the themes that run through Hemingway's Our Time. Also provides us with a sparse prose and our first glimpse of the recurring character Nick Adams, making it essential reading for any Hemingway fan. All right, that one sounds pretty good. Before, during, and after World War I, at least it's a collection of short stories, so I can pick and choose what I want to read. Just not into war stories that in any way are enthusiastic or glorify war. That's just not my thing. That's just not my thing. So anyway, I might give that a shot. So there's 2. So the first one, I'm sorry, F. Scott Fitzgerald, but probably not going to entice me, even as a public domain. Probably not going to entice me to try that one again. Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf, yeah, could be. In Our Time by Ernest Hemingway, could be. I like his writing style. I like a lot about Hemingway. It's just, like I said, some of his enthusiasm toward armed conflict is not in my preferences, not among my preferences. So Agatha Christie, okay. With over 70 novels, plays, and short stories to her name, Agatha Christie is one of history's most prolific writers, and her world-renowned mysteries have been steadily falling out of copyright and into the public domain for several years. Lucky us. The Secret of Chimneys is the first to feature Scotland Yard's Superintendent Battle, a man of stolid good sense who will be replaced by the famous Belgian detective Hercule Poirot in the next 4 years' releases. So enjoy him while you can. Otherwise, The Secret of Chimneys is classic Christie. A murder on a well-to-do estate, red herrings and misdirections, and lashings of unexpected twists. You can't really go wrong. Yeah, Agatha Christie. That's one that I definitely want to read. I don't recall reading The Secret of Chimneys before. I mean, as I just read, 70 novels, plays, and other short stories. Haven't read all those, anywhere close to all those. I've read just a handful of, but love it. Those kind of stories, the Sherlock Holmes and Hercule Poirot, Miss Marple type things. Yeah, all good, all good. Love those type of things. When I was young, I even read Hardy Boys. What was that? Something flew off of somewhere. I think my glasses are losing some of their veneer finish or something like that. Anyway, not to worry. Where are we at here? Oh, there I am. Okay, yeah. Come back over here. Okay, so yes, The Secret of Chimneys by Agatha Christie. Going to add that to my list. The New Negro by Elaine Leroy Locke. If you're familiar with Harlem Renaissance, then you may have heard of Elaine Leroy Rock, the man who is widely considered to be the father of that intellectual explosion. Well, I'm not familiar with Harlem Renaissance, although it sounds like something I might want to become familiar with. Perhaps you've even heard of The New Negro, for this 1925 anthology edited by Locke gave its name to the Harlem Renaissance, a revival of African American literature and art known then as the New Negro Movement. Between its covers are stunning works of prose, poetry, and nonfiction by seminal Black voices, including Langston Hughes, W.E.B. Du Bois, and Zora Neale Hurston. Du Bois, W.E.B. Du Bois, and Zora Neale Hurston. This is a meticulously curated celebration of the Black creativity of the era. Okay, that sounds worth checking out. Again, I'm pretty quick to pick up a collection, anthologies and so on, short stories and short novels, things like that. And poetry, I'm pretty particular about my poetry. I have my clear likes and dislikes and so on, but yeah, that definitely sounds like it would be worth checking out. Here's another one. Number 6 on the list is Arrowsmith by Sinclair Lewis. Okay. Arrowsmith, which chronicles a doctor's rise through the scientific community, was written by Nobel laureate Sinclair Lewis with the help of science writer Paul de Kruif, de Kruif, whose real-life expertise brings a heavy reality to this sharp-witted satirical commentary on the state of American medicine. It's widely considered Lewis's most accomplished novel, earning him the Pulitzer Prize the year after its publication, but he notably refused the prize, claiming that the committee was too narrow-minded in deeming any novel the best of the year. Of course, he accepted when the Nobel Prize came in 1930. Interesting. So, satirical commentary on the state of American medicine back in 1926. So that would be kind of interesting to compare it to the current situation. Interesting. Oh, Aldous Huxley. Those Barren Leaves by Aldous Huxley. It'll be a few years before Aldous Huxley's genre-defining Brave New World drops into the public domain, but while we wait for Huxley's sci-fi classic, we can chew over his deliciously satirical novel about the human tendency to feign sophistication. Those Barren Leaves finds a group of socialites gathered at the Italian palace of Mrs. Aldwinkle. Among the guests, a popular novelist who records her affair with another guest for future material, a broke and crusty intellectual pursuing a mentally disabled heiress, and working man Mr. Fawkes, whose student in socialism, the charming Lord Hovenden, grows distracted by young love. Were this another Agatha Christie novel, this sundry cast would find themselves tied together by a mysterious murder. Instead, they're united by their posing and pretensions to our equal enjoyment. Okay, that might be interesting. Aldous Huxley is another one whose writing style I can get into. Of course, Brave New World I've read a couple of times. And it's a classic. It's interesting, well-written, thought-provoking. To this day, I think it's definitely. So those, another one to add to my list. Another I wasn't familiar at all with. Or whoever it is that put out this list. Who did put out this list? This list was put out by Discovery. Reedsy.com. Reedsy, REEDSY.com. Reedsy.com. Interesting. Okay, so Those Barren Leaves by Aldous Huxley. And then next is this is a writer I'm not familiar with, An American Tragedy by Theodore Dreiser. Dreiser? D-R-E-I-S-E-R. Dreiser? Dreiser, right? Dreiser. A storyteller to rival Dickens, Theodore Dreiser happened to write a true crime novel before the genre even existed, when he took a notorious murder case as his point of departure and penned An American Tragedy. In Clyde Griffiths, the novel's tragic hero, Dreiser paints a haunting portrait of an impoverished and insecure social climber whose naive dreams of self-betterment drive him to commit a desperate and unforgivable act of violence. Around Clyde, Dreiser paints in intricate detail the landscape of early 20th century America, its economic pressures, hypocrisies, and political corruption. This is not only a riveting true crime story, but also a heartbreaking social commentary with mythic force. Sounds good, actually. A storyteller to rival Dickens. Okay, well, we all know Dickens. This could be good. Another one to add to the list. Wow. I stumbled across A very interesting list here. The next one, number 9 on the list, is The Painted Veil by W. Somerset Maugham. Somerset Maugham wrote one of my all-time favorite books that became one of my favorite movies, The Razor's Edge. The movie was significantly different in a lot of respects. I mean, the basic premise was the same, but so many of the details changed. It was almost unrecognizable, the movie and the book. And I saw the movie before I read the book, and that's often a dangerous thing to do because the movie tends to put images in your mind, and then when you read the book, generally the book is usually better, and so it's kind of messes things up for me in a lot of stories. But with The Razor's Edge, there was enough difference that it worked for me. Didn't have a problem at all. The characters, I mean, the setting, a lot of the setting was different. A lot of it was the same. But anyway, I didn't have any problem at all reading the book after watching the movie. So there wasn't not a lot carried over, actually, the characters and so on. I didn't have those images of the actors in my head while I was reading the book, which is a good thing, I think. But The Painted Veil, going back to The Painted Veil, a firm favorite for Hollywood adaptations. The Painted Veil is a proto-feminist book about a young woman's spiritual awakening, predictably published to a storm of protest in 1925. Kitty Fane is the young woman in question, a beautiful but shallow socialite married to a man she doesn't care for. Unsatisfied and love-starved, she starts an illicit affair with an exciting and attractive young man, but when her husband discovers her adultery, he exacts a strange and terrible vengeance, forcing her to accompany him to a remote village in China, where her awakening conscience compels her to grow. Interesting. Sounds like it would be worth reading also. Maugham, another author whose writing style I like, I find very accessible. The character development, the storyline, everything. Yeah, another author that I very much enjoy. Let's see what is number 10 on. Oh, this is interesting. A Daughter of the Samurai by Etsu Inagaki Sugimoto. A Daughter of the Samurai is the memoir of a determined and keenly observant young woman who must navigate a path between two very different cultures. Raised the beloved daughter of a high-ranking samurai, Etsu Sugimoto had always been certain of her future in her community as a Buddhist priestess. But as a young teenager, she had to leave behind the only world she knew for an arranged marriage in the United States. Sugimoto is alive to the contradictions, ironies, and beauties of both cultures as she learns both how to be a Japanese wife and how to get by in 19th century Ohio. Her memoir gives us a rare insight into the struggles and strengths of that first generation of Japanese immigrants. Being, in the opposite situation, an American coming to live in Japan, this could be very interesting. It's a book that I was not aware of. Again, being almost 100 years old now, it's dated, I'm sure, in some ways, but definitely sounds like there could be some interesting insights there that deserve to be explored. I don't know anything about the writer Etsu Inagaki Sugimoto. Not a name that's familiar to me, but I think I need to check it out. Now that it's in the public domain, what have I got to lose, right? A little bit of hard disk space when I download the digital format of the book, right? And then, number 11. I thought there were only 10, but they've got 11, I guess 12. Maybe the 10 plus 2 bonuses, I don't know. Oh, interesting. Manhattan Transfer by John Dos Passos. In Manhattan Transfer, Don Dos Passos constructs an impressionistic portrait of New York City in the 1920s. Using experimental montage techniques borrowed from cinema, he captures the fragmented lives of a colorful cast of characters in a series of overlapping vignettes. From wealthy brokers to penniless immigrants, dockside crapshooters to high society flappers. Oh yeah, the 1920s, the roaring 20s. The result is a kaleidoscope of the modern city filled with life, drama, human tragedy. Everyone struggling to become a part of a great futuristic machine before they are destroyed by it. Interesting. Sounds like an interesting idea. This montage technique borrowed from cinema. Wonder how well that worked. Don't know anything about John Dos Passos, but definitely worth checking out for the price, right? And number 12, the last one on this list, The Writing of Fiction by Edith Wharton. Name sounds familiar. Should I know that name, Edith Wharton? Let's see. A great chronicler of upper-class American society, Edith Wharton forged a path of unparalleled creativity and literary acclaim in the early 20th century, earning herself the Pulitzer Prize in 1920 for her examination of high society milieu, The Age of Innocence. As the first female writer to win the prize and one of America's most beloved authors, who better to walk you through the writing of fiction? In brilliant prose, Wharton reflects on the craft of writing, from the telling of a short story to the construction of a novel, to the importance of character development and beyond. Her advice has truly stood the test of time and provides glimmers of insight that can only be gleaned from one of the greats. Wow. Okay. So I know that I'm no great writer, although I've toyed with the idea of writing, mostly toyed with the idea of short stories because I'm not sure that I have the patience to write a novel. And I guess I need a faster payoff. But yeah, interesting. It's a book that I think I need to recommend to my friend Jeff. Again, although it was written 100 years ago, it might very well be something very valuable to add to a reading list. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. So, Mercy Minor. Thank you, dear. My wife, wrong glasses. My wife sent me a Stay Safe award. Yes, dear, I will stay safe. Thank you, thank you. Yeah. So anyway, these books that I found, this is an interesting list. I'm going to have to let's see. Well, this is interesting. When do books enter the public domain? Long story short, as of 2021, any book published before 1926 is definitely yours to read for free. and used without permission. Any book published after 1963 is still firmly in copyright. And books published between those two dates, in what the New York Public Library calls the renewal era, is where things get more complicated. Prior to 1964, books had a 28-year copyright term, unless renewed by the author for a further 28 years. This required form filling and admin, and apparently most authors just couldn't be bothered because 75% didn't renew. So the copyrights on their books expired and those books became public domain. Woohoo! However, any author who published work after 1923 and managed to renew it got to slip through the net and keep their copyright to themselves. Due to a series of new laws, that copyright term was eventually extended to 95 years, which meant that no new works became public domain between 1998 and 2018, a long drought of 2 decades for readers. I was aware of that, but I wasn't clear as to why for that period of time there weren't new public domain books coming into the public domain. But I had been aware of that, yeah. As a result, January 1st, 2019 was a momentous day. A pile of new books entered the public domain for the first time in more than 20 years. And since then, there have been new books in the public domain on the first day of every year. In 2019, the copyright for books published in 1923 expired. In 2020, the copyright for works published in 1924 expired, and so on and so forth, bringing us now to 2021. And then there's a link to find out if a book is in the public domain. So this is very interesting. I need to put that in a bookmark so that I can remember this. That's just too good. Just too good. It was posted on January 11th, so I'm late to the game, but better late than never, eh? Let's see. Let's see. But thousands of books, including many that were considered to be the best books of all time. Oh. Let's see what the best books of all time are. Shall we find out what the best? 150. Okay, we're not going to go through all 115. I mean, I'm all for spending time with you guys. But I'm not going to sit here and read about 115 books. Let's see. So we've got, feel free to skip to your favorite era using this table of contents. So we've got ancient civilizations. That's probably not going to be at the top of my list. Post-classical literature. Getting closer. Literature in the modern age. And contemporary literature. Okay. These are the best books of all time, not necessarily public domain books. Let's see. Let me just read the blurb here at the beginning. The 115 best books of all time. The written word, wait a minute, let me bring this over here. Why don't I? Okay. The written word is a pillar of human civilization. It signals complex thinking. It's a tool to record history, and it allows for the development of ideas. Throughout our existence, so much has been written down, whether carved into stone or printed on paper, immortalizing thrilling tales and imparting wisdom. Many are lost, weathered by time, or withered in flames, like in the case of the Library of Alexandria, though plenty remain for us to peruse. Let's take a trip through time and discover the world's literary trend by looking at 115 of the best books of all time. It took a while to compile this list. There is simply too much great writing. But you see that there's a bit of everything, from poetry to plays to novels, from Chinese classics to Renaissance gems. All right, and then they've got those four eras: ancient civilizations, post-classical literature, literature in the modern age, and contemporary literature. Let's go to contemporary literature. Okay, contemporary literature starts at number 69. Native Son by Richard Wright, written in 1940. So this could be public domain, right? Based on that thing that I read before, that was saying, let's see, so between 1926 and 1963, it's unclear. It depends on whether it was renewed, the copyright was renewed or not. So that's something that we don't know. Richard Wright. Oh, but the blurb here sounds interesting. Some books are so powerful that you can hardly bear to look at them. Richard Wright's Native Son is one of them. Set in Chicago in the 1930s, Native Son is a brutally barefaced examination of the institutionalized racism in America. At its heart is Bigger Thomas, a black man who, driven to desperate measures when circumstances spiral out of his control, becomes impossibly entangled in the criminal justice system. A star of the Harlem Renaissance, we heard about that in the New Negro. Wright writes with an unflinching intensity, exposing the racial divide in America in the 1940s that led Bigger to his fate, a societal crisis that remains starkly relevant to this day. True, right? So yeah, that would be now an HBO film. That would be one to check to see if it's public domain or not. 1940, so it could be. Let's see. The Heart is a Lonely Hunter. That's a famous book. I don't think I've read it, though. The Heart is a Lonely Hunter by Carson McCullers, 1940. Carson McCullers' debut album, written when she was only 23, was an instant classic when it was published. The author's sheer prodigiousness is astonishing enough, but it is the rich wisdom and gentle insight that makes The Heart is a Lonely Hunter truly remarkable. You'll probably never meet a protagonist quite as memorable as John Singer, a deaf and nonverbal man who sits in the same cafe every day. Here in the deep American South of the 1930s, John meets an assortment of people. The cafe owner, Bill Brannon, Mick Kelly, a young girl who wants nothing more than to play music, Jake Blount, a desperate alcoholic, and Dr. Copeland, a frustrated and idealistic black doctor. John is a silent, kind keeper of their stories, right up until an unforgettable ending that will blow you away, placing The Heart is a Lonely Hunter squarely beside such Southern classics as Grapes of Wrath and To Kill a Mockingbird. Okay, I have read Grapes of Wrath. I have read To Kill a Mockingbird. Grapes of Wrath I read in junior high school. And it was interesting. A little depressing and long, and did not make me love it. But yeah, I'm happy that I read it. To Kill a Mockingbird, yeah. Read that, seen the movie, read the book again. Yeah, it's great. Yeah. All right. So that was number 70. Number 71, The Stranger by Albert Camus. I like Camus. And The Stranger, yes, of course, I've read The Stranger. It's great. But here's the blurb about The Stranger by Albert Camus, 1942, by the way. Probably, I wonder if it's public domain. Don't know. It'd be worth checking out. I would guess that it's not, but Albert Camus' own summary of The Stranger is perhaps the best way to describe this iconic book. I summarized The Stranger a long time ago with a remark I admit was highly paradoxical. In our society, any man who does not weep at his mother's funeral runs the risk of being sentenced to death. I only meant that the hero of my book is condemned because he does not play the game. And so The Stranger duly opens with Meursault, our hero, Meursault, our hero, learning of the death of his mother. From this point onward, the reader is led in a strange dance of absurdism and existentialism that makes Meursault confront something even crueler than mortality: society's expectations. Yeah. That makes me want to read it again. I mean, like I said, I've read it. It's good. Oh, got to talk about at least the next couple here. Graham Greene, The Heart of the Matter by Graham Greene, 1948. Graham Greene, author of such acclaimed books as The Quiet American and The End of the Affair, is regarded as one of the best English authors of the 20th century, and The Heart of the Matter might be the centerpiece in his glittering oeuvre, or how do you pronounce that? Oeuvre? Oeuvre. I don't know. I mean, I know what it means, but I don't know how you read that. Anyway, it open. Okay, showing my ignorance there. I got to figure this out. Let me check this out here. It just bothers me to no end. Oeuvre. I mean, it's, yeah, the oeuvre and hors d'oeuvre. Oeuvre. Oh. That's how the French say it anyway.
Oeuvre.
Oeuvre. All right, so it is oeuvre. All right, so there you go. Oeuvre. In his glittering oeuvre. It opens in a British colony in West Africa. Oh, by the way, I used Forvo. It's a website that has a bunch of people that have recorded their pronunciations of words. So that's what I used. So The Heart of the Matter. It opens in a British colony in West Africa as the upstanding Henry Scobie misses a promotion to become Commissioner of Police. Yet this single development has earth-shaking consequences for both him and his wife Louise, who decides to leave him. Against his better judgment, Henry accepts a shady loan to help Louise gain passage to the ship that will take her away from him. But as he soon discovers, one bad decision will lead to many more. Graham Greene. What did I read by Graham Greene? Was it The Quiet American? Anyway, Graham Greene is another one whose writing style, character development. I mean, I like reading Graham Greene. I don't think I've read this one. Strange. I'm not very methodical in my reading. Kind of bounce around whatever seems to attract me at the time. Somehow I've missed this, The Heart of the Matter. Gonna have to check that out. And the next one, the last one, I'll do two more. Yeah. number 73, 1984 by George Orwell. I don't even know if I need to talk about this. It's great. I mean, it's absolutely amazing book. Read it 2-3 times, I think. At least twice. I think 3 times, maybe more. And sections of it I've read. And of course, seen the movie. Yeah, it is what it is. It's great. I mean, it's Orwell. Yeah. Big Brother is the blurb. Big Brother is watching you. Both the governmental slogan that has become synonymous with this iconic novel and the eerie sense you'll get as you're reading. George Orwell's 1984 is a landmark work in the dystopian genre for its affecting portrayal of a totalitarian state that strictly controls and surveils its citizens. Though, of course, few are content with such an existence. Our narrator, Winston Smith, is one such citizen employed by the Ministry of Truth, which actually serves the opposite cause. Winston fully grasps the corruption of the government, yet feels powerless to stop it. Yet what's most compelling about this book isn't Winston's individual experience, but the exceptional detail and social commentary Orwell injects into the story, potently warning readers of a reality that could all too easily come to pass. Yeah. I mean, I still find, I mean, here I am, buying into the controlling features that are talked about in 1984. I mean, here I am on camera. I have a camera on my computer in my office. I have a computer at home with a camera in it. I mean, people are volunteering to monitor their own actions. And of course, we know, thanks to people like Snowden, we know that people can hack into those things and turn them on, turn on our cameras without us even knowing about it and so on. I mean, at least until I started broadcasting, and even now, because not enough people watch me to matter. But I feel that, I'm anonymous enough that I've probably slipped under the radar. I mean, why would they have any interest in me? Their resources, while vast, are limited, and they're just clearly people that would be more interesting to them than monitoring me. But yeah, if I get on somebody's radar, they definitely would have an easy time keeping track of me. Follow me on Haps, and you got a pretty good idea of what I'm about, right? Anyway, so yeah, 1984 by George Orwell, great book. And we'll stop here at number 74. Will be the last one, The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. One of the most iconic coming-of-age novels in literature. J.D. Salinger's The Catcher in the Rye is still a must-read today, and Holden Caulfield is one of the most recognizable protagonists ever. Told from Holden's point of view, this classic at first seems like a simple tale about a boy wandering the streets of New York with no plan in mind and nothing to do. Yet any reader who digs deeper will encounter a cry of teenage disillusionment, not to mention a moving story that confronts the reality of growing up. Yeah, I read it, and this is another one. This, similar to my comments about the Fitzgerald's Great Gatsby. Just didn't get into the character. This Holden Caulfield, he just wasn't. Hello, Edward. Welcome. I'm just blathering on about things. Yeah. Good morning. Yeah. Afternoon where I am, but good morning to you. Um, yeah. The Catcher in the Rye. I just didn't get into it. Yeah. Teenage disillusionment. Yeah. I could see, the guy had problems. The guy was, I mean, and, but yeah, I didn't identify with him. I read it as a teenager and it just didn't click with me. I mean, partly, I think probably mainly it was the fact that I was living in rural America, and this Holden Caulfield was, wandering the streets of New York. So very, very different experiences. But I know how difficult to live with, how difficult it is to live with cameras everywhere. Yeah. Yeah. Um, I mean, yeah, difficult. I mean, if you worry about those things, yeah, then it's difficult. But I mean, yeah, if you're not doing anything wrong, then why are you worried about privacy? Yeah, I mean, that's not the way I feel, really. I mean, it's like, yeah, I should be able to choose exactly what I share and what I don't, and so if I choose to be on camera like I am now, that's fine, no worries. But the idea that someone else, be that a governmental institution or another private citizen, that they could monitor me electronically uh, through cameras, either of theirs or my own, is rather a disturbing thought, just because yeah, it's an invasion of privacy, and I should be able to choose. But then you can kind of take things to the extreme. So I mean, so it would be difficult, to for anyone, to do a news story. um I mean, you could argue that, for example, the way I look, I mean, is a copyrighted work to a certain extent. I mean, I look the way I look. I have chosen, put together, this outfit. I've chosen to groom myself in such and such a way. So I mean, I created this look in the same way that any artist creates any work of art. And so therefore, in the same way that you're not allowed to walk into a museum and take photographs of famous artworks and so on, that people shouldn't be allowed to take photographs of me without my permission, right? This is my look. But then again, that seems unnecessary, ridiculous. I don't know what to say about it. I mean, I can kind of get behind people who might argue that. So yeah. I mean, why not? You know, if any news crew goes anywhere, and there are people in their, in their broadcast, people that are captured by their cameras, that they should be required to get releases for every. Spy cameras are so small. Yes, they are. They should be required to get releases for every person who appears in a single frame of their news story, right? Because that person is that person, and they should have the right to decide whether they're going to appear on television or not. There's one argument. Then again, the argument is, hey, it's news and people have the right to know. Which is right? Privacy or the right to know? Privacy, the right to know. Privacy, the right to know. And isn't that the Trump's argument for why he didn't share his tax returns, right? Privacy. We were saying the right to know, and so on. Which is right? I don't know. But anyway, going back to The Catcher in the Rye, just couldn't get into it. Just, huh. Uh, Plus, I didn't like the writing style. I just didn't find a lot that I liked about The Catcher in the Rye. And yeah, like I said, I never got through it. I got about a third, maybe halfway through it, and just like didn't feel compelled to finish the story. Like I said, the same way with the Great Gatsby. Just didn't really care what happened to those characters. Yeah, I mean, I could see where more the Great Gatsby than the Catcher in the Rye. The writing style, the character development, that was all there. Um, the it was all good, but again, I guess it's the characters that compel me to read the story, and neither the characters in The Catcher in the Rye nor the characters in The Great Gatsby um, compelled me to want to find out more about them, about what was going to happen to them, and how whatever situation was resolved. It just didn't really matter to me. Yeah, spy cameras, they could be everywhere. And, but then again, I mean, maybe if we get over this idea of privacy, it's like, hey, whatever we do, it's just out there. Uh, because if everything we do is out there, and that's true for everyone, I think that would necessarily make people less judgmental of the mistakes that come to light of people, because we all obviously make mistakes. And if it's documented, if everybody's mistakes, like if the surveillance becomes just complete, uh, so that everything we do is documented, and so all the mistakes and all the ridiculous things that we do and so on are all out there. We recognize that nobody's perfect. We all make mistakes. We all you know whatever, lose our temper, or say ridiculous things, say things without actually thinking through what it is that we're saying, what the meaning of what we're actually, the words that are actually uh, coming out of our mouth actually mean, or how they might be interpreted regardless of what we actually meant. um, Once that's true for everybody, it's all out there, and anybody could judge anybody else, then maybe the tendency would be to be less judgmental, I would hope. It's like, yeah, nobody's perfect. I mean, we all know that. I mean, we've got that catchphrase, nobody's perfect. And yet when somebody who, for ridiculous reasons, we have put on a pedestal, we find out that they're actually human and they make mistakes too, that they're not perfect either, then we. I mean, some people obviously deserve well, I mean, some people have conducted themselves in ways that um, I cannot approve of. Words are dangerous. Words are dangerous if we allow them to be dangerous. I mean, actually, words can't do anything that we don't allow them to do. I mean, no word can be insulting unless we allow it to insult us. The words don't have any power that we don't give them. of course, the fact of the matter is we generally give them that power. We allow them to influence us, but we don't have to. That's not an absolute. That's not a given. It's not necessarily 100% free choice. I mean, we are the products of our DNA and our environments, and so the way we react to certain words, the way those certain words affect us, is not 100% within our control. At least not initially, but I would say that pretty close to they could be within our control, at least for many people, if not all people. So that's why, so people who are going to watch this will probably say, how can he say things like that? But I mean, and I'm not the only one, especially comedians today say things like, political correctness is just gone too far, and that's how I feel. Again, people are letting these words, take control of them instead of the other way around. We're supposed to control our words. And I don't mean, that's just that, we control what we say, what words come out of our mouths or come out of our pen or our computer and so on. But words that are directed toward us, regardless of the motivation or the objective of the person saying those words, that's not what actually determines, the result of those words being communicated. It's how the receiver accepts those words, right? So that's where the real power is, if we choose to take it. Yeah. I mean, all this political correctness, oh, you can't use that word, and that's offensive. And I mean, I just don't see it. Not the word. The intention behind a word can be derogatory, can be hurtful. That's the intention behind the word. The word itself, I would argue, the word itself is not hurtful. Unless we allow it to be. And of course, I'm this white guy, so I mean, I have enjoyed white privilege my entire life. I mean, I'm living in Japan and I still benefit from white privilege because, Americans and basically, American because of both the military. I mean, here in Japan, Japan recognizes the fact that, they lost the war to America, right? And so America is a representative of this, both military and economic power in the world. And so simply by being a citizen of that power, that country, that grants me some status that as an individual I have not earned and don't deserve. So, I mean, I've just defined white status, right? Or white privilege, right? I'm enjoying, a status that I don't really deserve. And I still benefit from it. And I see that in, in things like, foreigners in Japan who are, for example, Asians from outside of Japan, especially Asians from less economically developed areas of Asia, are generally looked down upon. If the country is relatively weak economically, then the people are judged in that light. Ridiculous. I mean, that's the definition of prejudice, right? I mean, based on, a lack of information, a superficial data point, you make a judgment about someone, right? Oh, you're from America, therefore blah, 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 blah. Or you're from Thailand, therefore blah, 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 or whatever, right? But, like I said, this political correctness, yeah, I think it's gotten blown out of proportion. People have become so thin-skinned that if a word is used that they can possibly interpret with some negative spin to it, that therefore it should not be used. So being a foreigner, obviously, being a white man in Japan, I stand out in the crowd. I'm a little bit taller than average. I'm not tall by any means, but I'm a little bit taller than average, the average Japanese man. My skin is white. My hair is thinning, but what I have left is lighter colored than Japanese. I'm not blonde or redhead, but I'm a white man, stand out, and so, people, obviously refer to me as a foreigner, a gaijin or gaikokujin. And I've heard, the term gaijin can have a negative connotation associated with it. Gaijin literally means outsider. But actually the term gaijin can be used with Japanese who have moved to an area that they didn't grow up in, for example. So they were born and raised in one part of Japan and moved to another place, especially if that place is a rural area. So the first place I came in Japan was a rural area, and I heard Japanese talking about other Japanese in that town as gaijin because they had lived there only for 10 or 15 years. They had come from another part of Japan, and so they were still considered gaijin because this was a small rural community where everybody knows everybody else, and so, oh, you're a newcomer. But again, more than newcomer, they use the term outsider. And so in the same way, of course, I'm an outsider, but it's not necessarily so derogatory, although it can be used derogatorily. Oh, you're an outsider means that you don't understand, you don't have the ability to comprehend what's going on here because this is something that requires being part of the group, and you are an outsider, you're a gaijin. So it can be derogatory, exclusive in that way. But I was never insulted when somebody would use the word gaijin, even if they were trying to be insulting. It just, that just didn't make sense to me to be insulted by that. And I get confused, about some words that so for example, words like midget, which, as I understand it, midget is is felt by people of lesser stature to be little people, whatever, to be a less than favorable word to use. But to me, it's purely descriptive, and let's see. Okay, so here's something I've read before, and I just searched it again. So from Daniel Woodburn to Roger Ebert. Ebert, the movie critic and so on. Dear Mr. Ebert, I am an actor that you have reviewed neither favorably nor unfavorably in two different movies. One was Death to Smoochie, the other Things You Can Tell Just by Looking at Her. I have absolutely no objection to you trashing a film or lauding it. I do object to the word midgets in your review of Death to Smoochie. As a writer, you are aware of the power of words. The use of the word midget is, for little people, equated with any other hate word someone might use to describe a minority group. I simply ask you, if you were to see little people, children, would you take away their humanity in the same way with the use of such a hate word? I can respect a yes answer, but I cannot respect the person who answers yes. Sincerely, Daddy Woodburn. Okay. And Roger Ebert, you can think what you will of him, but here's his reply. Dear Mr. Woodburn, I had no idea the word midget was considered offensive, and you are the only person who has ever written to me about it. In my mind, it is a descriptive term like dwarf. Little people has seemed to me to have a vaguely condescending cuteness to it. If I am now informed that midget is offensive, I will no longer use it. What is your feeling about dwarf? Is little person always the preferred term? Our newspaper's style book is based on Associated Press does not consider midget or dwarf to be offensive terms, but perhaps we have not caught up. So and it goes on. The exchange goes on there, but I mean, the Ebert, has said exactly, what I felt, and this is back in 2005, that exchange took place, and that's the way I felt. I mean, I had no idea, and I guess it's hard for me to relate because there aren't so many words that other people use for standard stature white males that is derogatory. I mean, what? I mean, cracker. Again, cracker. I guess that's isn't that somewhat of a derogatory term to refer to white people? Cracker term. Sometimes white cracker or cracker is a racial epithet directed towards white people, used especially against poor rural whites in the southern United States. Is sometimes used in a neutral context in reference to a native of Florida or Georgia. So cracker, sometimes white cracker or cracka, is a racial epithet directed towards white people, usually or used especially against poor rural whites in the southern United States. Okay. So I grew up a poor rural white person, not in the southern United States. But if someone would call me a cracker or a cracka or a white cracker, would I be? I mean, that seems to fit. And not the growing up in the South or living in the South part, but hey, you got it.
It was. I always the one time I always feel bad. I bug him and say, "Hey, when's it coming? When's it coming?" For the last few years, every time there's a Mac thing, I bug him. He's like, "It's going to take another few weeks." Blah blah blah. So this time, I kept my mouth shut. And today, I'm in conference. I'm like, does he even have the order? Maybe he didn't get the order. So I walk over there. Oh, I don't know. We had it last week, but you weren't there. Well, there's this thing called email. They always email you. I assume phone messages. I'm like. Yeah, I kind of had it set up to take the kid out of it, so it's just sitting there. So,
oh, shoot.
Yeah, because I was reading, you were saying chip shortage, blah, 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 but it turns out the chip shortage doesn't affect Apple. Because Apple gets the chips, but everybody else.
Right, yeah.
So, it's hard for other people to get access to high quality silicon. Apple's like, no, we'll take all 1 billion of those, thank you.
Right. Yeah. The what is it? TSMC. You know.
Two of them. There's
Yeah. and the other one. Yeah.
Apple's like, boom, boom, boom.
Korean
Everybody's
one,
like, you know what? We're gonna go with Apple. So
Yeah.
it's unfortunate for the other people.
Yeah, they'll buy all that we got, you
Yeah.
know. So yeah, they're a preferred customer, right?
So,
Sure.
yeah. And so I mean, their homepage had the delivery dates, you know, always within a week, you know, and it had been that way. And as I checked, even yesterday, it had been that way. I'm just like, but I don't want to bother the poor guy.
Right.
He doesn't email me.
Yeah, that
Oh, well.
sucks.
But
Yeah.
better late than never.
Yeah.
I mean, it probably just came a couple days ago. Maybe he said on the weekend. I didn't know if he said last week or the weekend. If it was on the weekend, then I definitely don't blame him.
Right. Yeah.
So here it is. It's so tiny.
Yeah.
Who you doing haps again or?
Yeah. I'm just rambling on. I didn't have anything to do, so I thought I'd talk for a while. I've been talking about. I found this website I do every once in a while. Is about new books that are recently into the public domain. You know, and The Great Gatsby is now, as of this year, is now in the public domain, which was interesting. Hated that book. Couldn't get through it. Yeah, I couldn't get through it. That and anyway. So.
I got Kindle to get ready.
Yep.
But I think I'll open this up after Kindle.
Yeah, because otherwise you just won't be able to tear yourself away from it. So,
no, I'm not going to get to sit up in 10 minutes.
Right, exactly. Cool.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. Now that COVID's here, I don't even need this, but oh well.
Cool.
M1, our first M1 chip.
Cool.
I saw students with M1 computers, and I'm like, "Is that an M1?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh," I said, "You want? I'll trade my." His friend's like, "M1, what M1?"
Do you ever have your like either 2 or 3 times now? I've had my Wi-Fi drop out, and I had to shut off the Wi-Fi and turn it back on in order to find the Tokai access point. Yeah.
Never.
See, I'm wondering if there's something glitchy about my computer because that just shouldn't happen.
Not your new one.
The new one, yeah.
Might be. Maybe you do a lot more Wi-Fi than I do because I'm not so intense on there. I don't do broadcasting like you do. Right. I mean, I don't do real-time Teams at all.
Right.
Occasionally I do like Netflix, but I haven't done it recently. But when I did do it, I never had a problem. But Netflix can buffer too, so.
Right. Yeah.
It could be a combination of that, your high intensity Teams, or maybe there's a glitch.
Yeah, I don't know. At least 3 times I all of a sudden I'll hear the boom boom or this tone that is Teams telling me that I've been disconnected.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe Teams is very sensitive to even the slightest disruption.
Yeah, but like I said, I had to turn off my Wi-Fi and turn it back on before I could find the Tokai thing again. You know, it's like Wi-Fi was on and it showed no access points.
Yeah, it might be that Teams is overloading the router, and then the router has to reassign you an IP or something.
Could be, yeah. Anyway, it's weird.
Is it a Teams thing or is it a computer thing?
Yeah.
Oh.
No, just the world at large. That's right. Yeah, so anyway, what I was saying, I don't have any, this political correctness, people can choose to be bothered by a lot of different things, but like I said, it's mostly a choice. Even if the person using those terms has the intention of being insulting, still, whether you're insulted or not is at least partially your own choice, I think. I don't like to hear those kind of derogatory words used when I'm aware that they're derogatory. But like as I was just, giving the example, the word midget, had no idea that it, me and Ebert, neither of us knew that it was a derogatory term at all. So should people who I mean, maybe I should know better. I mean, I'm an English teacher, but still, that's just not on my radar of things. If I was trying to be derogatory, I don't know what word I would use for a little person. I mean, if I was trying to insult someone of lesser stature, a little person, whatever, I mean, the word midget just doesn't pop into my head as a real slam. Oh yeah, I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna call you it's what? Again, I miss it. So I mean, just I don't know. I don't know. Anybody out there have any insight? Want to educate me about something? There's so many things that I can be educated about. The guy that drives the horse. The guy that drives a horse and is always little. I'm not sure I am following you. The guy that drives a horse and is always little. Joker? Joker. Still not following. The guy that drives the horse is always little. Joker is always little. The guy that drives the horse. In what context? Is there a series that you're referring to? Oh, thank you for subscribing. Amazed that this little rant has motivated you to subscribe to me, but I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Getting a bad internet connection notice there. I hope I'm still online. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, yeah, I mean, it is partially true that, okay, if a word is offensive to the person, that it's offensive, right? I mean, so if there's a white person in the South that is offended by when he's called a cracker, then I guess that's offensive. But like I said, there's nothing. I don't believe that there's anything intrinsically tied to the word cracker that dictates that it must be used to cause offense. Hello from Portland. Who we got here? Warrior Grandma. Okay, hello. I was just, I don't know how this all happened. I was talking about books that are newly in the public domain this year. Classics. What happened to my page there? Yeah, there were classics like The Great Gatsby is now in the public domain, and Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf is now in the public domain. In Our Time by Ernest Hemingway is in the public domain. The Secret of Chimneys by Agatha Christie is now in the public domain. The New Negro by Elaine Leroy Locke is now in the public domain. Aerosmith by Sinclair Lewis, now in the public domain. Those Barren Leaves by Aldous Huxley in the public domain. So all these, there are a lot of really interesting books. Many of them I haven't read. Of course, I I was talking about, you know, The Great Gatsby. I tried to read it and didn't get into it. But now that it's free, more and more people hopefully will be checking it out, because it is considered one of the highlights of American literature. My problem was not with the character development or the writing style or the language or any of those things. It was simply that after, you know, reading about a third to a half of the book, I just wasn't invested in the characters. I just didn't come to care what happened to them. It just didn't grab me in that way, and so that was my lack of connecting with the characters in the book. It's not that, you know, the characters weren't well developed and so on. It's just that they didn't interest me. Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. Haven't read it, heard about it, and might give it a read. In Our Time, I talked about that because it's a collection of short fiction by Hemingway. So I like collections. I like short stories and so on. Agatha Christie, I talked about that. I really want to read that. I haven't read The Secret of Chimneys, and I like Agatha Christie. Definitely think that will be something I'll enjoy. So, I mean, Agatha Christie has written so many books. And then a Sinclair Lewis book, Aerosmith, not one that I'm familiar with. It earned him a Pulitzer Prize, which he turned down. The first one, right? He accepted the Nobel Prize in 1930, you know, Sinclair Lewis, right? But Aerosmith, talking about the state of American medicine back in 1920s, right? So might be interesting. And then Aldous Huxley, another writer, the science fiction, you know, the Brave New World. I loved that, read it several times. Those Barren Leaves, I actually am not familiar with, so I want to read that because he's another one, like I said, that I like his writing style and character development and so on. And another one that's really interesting, An American Tragedy by Theodore Dreiser. Dreiser? D-R-E-I-S-E-R. D-R-E-I-S-E-R. Dreiser, I think, is a true crime novel, is what it's saying. Sounds really interesting. The reviewer here compares his writing to that of Dickens as far as storytelling, so could be good. And then Somerset Maugham, another writer whose books I have enjoyed, but I don't know, The Painted Veil, and sounds interesting, is also in the public domain. And then I'm in Japan, and A Daughter of the Samurai by Etsu Inagaki Sugimoto is also now in the public domain. About a Japanese young woman who goes to America to be a bride in Ohio. So it's kind of interesting. Me as an American who came from the Midwest to live in Japan. So that's something I would like to check out. You know, so those are just some of the books that are the highlights, I guess, of the books that are main this year. Yeah, so that's how I started talking. From that, I went on to books of all time as rated by Treasure Island. Treasure Island, yes. Treasure Island's another great book. That's one that I did get into. That's one that I really enjoyed reading. Again, as is the case with most books, the book is so much better than any movie that is made based on it. Yeah, Treasure Island, very, very interesting book. Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. That's old. It must be in the public domain too, right? Yeah, 1883. So, oh yeah, it's been in the public domain for years and years. Yes, Treasure Island. I've read that. Yeah, Robert Louis Stevenson, another everyone knows, an excellent author. Treasure Island, or the Mutiny of the Hispaniola. Yeah, good book. So anyway, that's the kind of things that I was talking about here, and then somehow kind of segued into, we're talking about the book 1984, which I read and loved. Read it several times, or at least a couple of times, and I really enjoyed it. And then talking about, of course, surveillance and so on, and how people are inviting surveillance into their homes, into their offices, like I am right now. You know, here I am in my office on camera, displaying my actions to the world. My words and actions are going out to the world. So giving up my privacy. To what end, I'm not really sure, but giving up my privacy. And, so talking about, the kind of surveillance and so on, and that got into words. And then Edward was watching and said, words are dangerous. And I kind of took issue with that it wasn't so much words that are dangerous. Words really have no power that we don't give to them, right? If we don't allow a word to hurt us, to insult us, the word itself doesn't have the power to do that to us, right? And I talked about all kinds of different examples, and that's how we got into these kind of things, and how I was unaware of the fact that little people prefer the term little people to midget, which I found a reference that I'd seen before, also, that Roger Ebert was also not aware that midget was a derogatory term. So at least I share that ignorance with a well-known movie critic. Yeah. So, where is the root of an insult? If I would use the word midget, even, a few years ago, if I'd used the word midget when I was totally unaware that at least some little people considered the word midget derogatory, if I'd used it at that time and someone heard that and was insulted by it, where is the source of that insult? I would feel that it wasn't me, because I had no intention to insult anyone. I was using it strictly in the descriptive sense. But the person who, the little person who heard me use that word and then felt insulted, it seems to me that the responsibility for the feeling of being insulted lies mostly with them. I mean, okay, you could argue, okay, I should have educated myself, aware of that. But then again, doesn't he have a responsibility to know that I had no intention of being insulting or derogatory? I mean, why is it a one-way street? The person that's insulted has no responsibility to be aware of how that word was actually intended to be used, the intention behind the word, whereas the person who used the word has to know who in the whole wide world might be offended by that use. Again, if we just realize that, if we just don't give words that power, just take the power away from the words, right? That word has no power over me. And again, I talked about the fact that I realized that I am a white man and I live with white privilege. Even in Japan, I benefit from white privilege. I said all these things before. So it's hard for me to understand, I mean, even if I was a woman, I'd at least have more awareness of, the difficulties of language, or, living in a society that favors, that benefits, the structure, the rules of society are such that they rather inadvertently or purposefully advantage certain segments of that population, as arguably men have advantage over women in many ways, in many areas. I don't think that's even arguable anymore. I mean, hopefully it's changing. But yeah, again, all this concern about, you use the right pronoun with that person, right? They have a preferred pronoun. Okay. I mean, if the person's appearance is such that it's not obvious, one uses pronoun is not the pronoun of that. That said, their initial reaction be insult or injury. It should be, the person made an honest mistake, right? I mean, I'm not the world's most masculine guy, right? That Lola by the Kinks. Yeah. Anyway, but I mean, I have a beard, and I'm balding. So even if you see me from the back, you're probably not going to mistake me for someone of another gender. I mean, you're probably going to assume that, okay, beard, balding, I'll bet he's male. And again, if that's the way I look, it's only reasonable to expect people to use a male gender-oriented pronoun with me. Oh, look at him, right? He's a white guy. Yeah, I bet he's American, right? And if, for whatever reasons, a person who might look like me feels that they are actually have a different gender orientation than what they physically are, portraying. How is that the responsibility of the person that simply sees them? So again, the idea of being offended by this. And again, people can use words to try to be insulting, to try to be derogatory. But that's just it. They can only try. They can't do it if we don't allow them. And again, I mean, the weak example that I gave was me being here and being referred to as a gaijin, which gaijin, as opposed to gai kokujin, gai kokujin means someone from another country. Gai means out, and koku means country, and jin means person. So out country person, so foreigner, a person from another country. But gaijin, which can be just simply an abbreviation of gaikokujin. It's long, so you reduce it to gaijin. That's totally legitimate. It happens all the time in Japanese and other phrases and words and so on. A longer word gets abbreviated and so on. Kind of like English contractions, so to speak, or things like, common, the way that we say things, want to becomes wanna, and so on, that type of thing. But, gaijin can be that, but it can also mean, an outsider, referring to either a foreign person or another Japanese person who, for whatever reason or another, is not part of that group, right? And I was talking about rural Japan. This happens where you've got a small, tight-knit community, and someone moves into that community for work or this or that, whatever, for whatever reason they move into that community, even though they're Japanese, but they've moved into that community from somewhere else, especially if it's from far enough away that the dialect, their pronunciation, the idioms, the common use language is different enough that it's noticeable. Then especially they will likely be labeled as a gaijin, an outsider. And that can last for years and years. Not necessarily derogatory. I mean, it can be, in the same way that the word outsider, oh, you're an outsider. You don't understand. You'll never understand. You're not part of this group. Get out of here. You're an outsider. But it wouldn't necessarily have to be in the way that, oh, that's an inside joke. You don't get it. Yeah. Alien, right? Alien. Yeah. Alien. Alien can be somebody from another country, can be somebody from another planet, right? And I mean, I'm an alien in Japan, right? I mean, I'm not from here. I'm an alien, technically. I'm a legal alien. I'm here as a permanent resident. I'm not a citizen of Japan. I'm here as a permanent resident of this country. I don't have to have my visa renewed. I can stay here indefinitely. I guess technically I'm still an alien, right? I'm a legally registered alien. And yet in America, if you're an alien, that's almost taken as a derogatory term. Oh, you're an alien. Almost with the presumption that if you're an alien, you're an illegal alien. Yeah. But again, that, so if I heard Americans talking about aliens, I mean, I would take the clues from what they were saying about them, how they were saying it, both the intonation and the phraseology of what they're saying, to determine whether they were trying to be derogatory in their remarks. But again, to me, the word alien has no power. It's not a derogatory term. It's a descriptive term, in the way that, white guy or little people, or, and until recently, the word midget was to me simply a descriptive term. Live and learn, live and learn. All right. Well, I don't know if anybody is still here. My wife is still here. Thank you, wife. Checking in on me. But I think I've talked long enough here. This tells me how long I've been talking, doesn't it? Oh, yeah, I've been talking for 1 hour and 45 minutes. Oh, my goodness, that's plenty long enough. So I'm going to wrap it up here. I will be back. I might be back tomorrow. I will definitely be online broadcasting Wednesday morning my time, which for you Americans, that's Tuesday evening. Tuesday evening between 6 o'clock and 10 o'clock, depending on where you are. 6 o'clock in the east and I guess 9 o'clock in the west, in the Pacific, when I'll be starting my little broadcast. So I welcome you to drop in then. It'll be followed up with, I start out with my Friendly Feud game. Just a cute, I don't know. It's just a little game that I whip up that's similar to Family Feud, except you play it on your own instead of as part of a group or family. And then do my Layman's Philosophy, where I ramble on again, but this time with someone else or someone's else, some other people on camera to keep me in line and make sure I don't go too far off the deep end. Okay, so thanks for everyone who listened. Thanks for the awards. If you haven't subscribed, please do. Edward, thank you for subscribing. And I'll see you again, I hope, real soon.